Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard, your host, and I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. So today we talk to David Gilleland. He is a quilter. He creates elaborate paper piece designs. He's a teacher, and he lives in Atlanta, and he's awesome.
David Gilleland. I live right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, right at the Georgia foothills.
We went to Atlanta last year, and your group, your tribe there, your local tribe in that like bigger Atlanta region in Georgia, you guys have a lot going on there. It's kind of remarkable. It's got this kind of hub of interesting activity. It's kind of an amazing little quilting space. Do you feel that your local spaces are pretty awesome as well as your national space?
Yeah, we have some really, really awesome talent here in Georgia. I'm honored to call them friends. Pam and Lynn from the Stitch TV, Andy from Red Hen, and a lot the stores and the quilters here are so supportive of everything that we do.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
And it makes a world of difference.
Hugely, yes. I want to be like an honorary member of that whole group because it's so inspiring and cool, and the shops and all the places you can rent a long arm and the Modern Quilt Guild there, and I mean it's just a really positive, interesting space of lots of quilting activity.
It is, and it's a lot of different styles, and that's what makes it really good. Is that everybody has their own style, and we can all bounce ideas off each other and learn from each other.
It's very cool. All right, so here's our second question, and then we can do anything we want. What's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
That would be my mom. My mom, when I was growing up, my mom made our clothes as babies and young kids. And my mother would always, whenever someone, a friend of hers would have a baby, she would make a whole cloth baby quilt, which is she would just take a children's type fabric and make the front of the quilt, and she would do a tied quilt. She didn't do hand quilting or machine quilting. She just did tied quilts. And I always remember she wouldn't let me touch her sewing machine, and no matter how much I wanted to, but she did teach me how to tie the quilts when I was like probably 8 or 9, and it was something I was always fascinated in, and I always loved watching it, and I would actually sneak and use her sewing machine when she was at work.
Yeah.
And then I'd get in trouble for messing it up. And it's so funny. I bought my first sewing machine when I was 17, and she told me just last year, she said what she wished she had done instead of buying me any toys or anything as an early teenager, she wished she had just bought me my own sewing machine.
Interesting. Do you think, was that unusual? Like, how did your friends see, like at 17 to buy your first sewing machine, were you what motivated you to do that? That seems like an unusual choice. What year was this? What year are we talking?
We're talking 91.
Yeah. So, yeah.
My friend, at the time, I had a few friends. I was always very shy and just kept to very few friends. So the couple of friends that I did, they were like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I taught myself how to sew. Matter of fact, a friend of mine's grandmother, I bought it because his grandmother had quit sewing, and she sold me a sewing machine for $10.
Oh, that's so cool! I totally love it. That's really cool. And so, how did your life? I mean, I know you went to art school. Am I right? Did you go to art school? Am I getting that right?
I went to fashion design school.
Right.
And I actually worked as a fashion designer. I had my own company for a while in the early 2000s. But I was doing stage and theater costumes.
Very cool.
And it was fun, but it wasn't like my 100% passion. And then the economy went downhill in like 2004, 2005, started going down. And so I left that.
And did you go directly into quilting? So what did you do when you were doing that sewing early, was quilting always part of it, or were you moving to making clothes and costumes, or was it always sort of a mix?
It was always a mix. One of the very first things I sewed was like a 4-patch block. Taught myself how to do that. So quilting's always been a part of my life. And it's just something I've always gone back to and enjoyed it. I actually have a quilt sitting in the attic in a bag that is just the blocks from like 20 years ago.
Really?
It will never get done. It was just something I was playing with.
And do you think it's okay?
And learning with.
Yeah. Do you think it's okay to not finish projects? Like, we have this kind of sense of we should always be finishing projects and sort of the guilt of not finishing them, you know?
I actually don't have any guilt about some of the projects I haven't finished. Things, you're learning things, you're trying things, and it just doesn't appeal to you when you're making it. You shouldn't force yourself to go through and make it, because all thing you're doing is, as long as you keep sewing through it, and it's not something you're really into, you're just gonna get more frustrated. Things are gonna set you off easier. And I don't think there's anything wrong with not finishing projects if it's something you're not into.
Yeah. Do you ever throw things out?
Yep, I have. I went through and I had a bunch of fabrics that I picked up at an estate sale and donated fabrics. And I actually went through and I called a couple friends and I was like, hey, if you want these, come get them. I'm not going to use them. A lot of people love to keep the fabrics around, and I'm more of like, I know I'm not going to use it. Let somebody else
move it on.
Use it for like charity quilts.
I like that too. I do too. And how much now that you're like a thing, do you still go to estate sales and look for other, like, are you using fabric that is now like designed by your friends or by you or by others, or are you still sort of using that as like searching for estate sale fabrics? Like, I'm using strictly fabrics designed by friends, current fabrics, because with me now that I'm designing patterns and I'm teaching and being at festival and at market and shows, a lot of people tend to want the exact fabrics that you designed the quilt using. And so we take in, now I'm using current fabrics or fabrics that can still be found. And are you trying to get ahead of the curve, so that are you using fabrics that are coming out next year, or are you using what's out, or using standard, like, what's your strategy with using fabric? Like, you have a really beautiful pattern up behind you on your design wall. Sort of, what's your strategy when you're creating things?
What I'm looking at is a couple of things. I do use fabrics that come out next year. Like I was using, I was a fabric ambassador for Boutique Textiles up to this past fall. So I would use their next line coming up to design a market quilt.
Yeah.
And then other times what I'm looking at fabrics that can still be found, that are still current. Like the one behind me on the wall, the colors in the boutiques are standard. So anybody can still get those colors.
Yeah.
That's what we look at predominantly now when we're designing.
Interesting. So tell me I keep running into people who are an island boutique ambassador. They have quite a strong program. Tell me about being an island boutique ambassador.
Well, the ambassador I was with Boutique Textiles.
Oh, Boutique Textiles.
But it's very similar.
Okay.
So the ambassador programs with the fabric companies now they're working with quilt makers, they're working with pattern designers. And basically what you're doing is you're helping promote the line.
Yeah.
You're making things with the line. you're talking about the line and you're sharing it on social media and at quilt shows and at market and at festival, so that people really see what can be done with that fabric line.
That's very cool. And what does it mean to be, in terms of like, did you sign a contract? Sort of what are there do's and don'ts with being an ambassador, or sort of what's the legal side of being an ambassador?
Each company has their own set of rules. With Boutique Textiles, we had a verbal agreement. I didn't use any other boutiques besides theirs because I was their ambassador, and they would provide me the fabrics for creating the quilts, even if it wasn't something I was going to be using at market. If it was something a quilt I was designing and I was sharing on social media. It was kind of like, send me, if they had fabrics that would work, they would send me.
Got it. And it was kind of like an exclusive oral agreement that you would be sort of just using their boutiques. Now, were you using other fabric besides boutiques? You were able to use other things, or were you, yeah?
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of sound problem. I think we're doing okay, though. So you were using the boutiques exclusively, but were you able to use other fabric that were non-boutiques?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Anything that wasn't a boutique, I would use other fabrics that were not boutiques, because not all of my designs I did with boutiques. A lot of them I do, but others I use solid fabrics. I use gradient fabrics, etc.
Yeah.
So as long as it wasn't a boutique, I could use anything I wanted.
Very cool. So tell me the difference between, and because on your website you have being an ambassador, but you also have partners. What's the difference between an ambassador and a partner? Because I'm hearing this a lot right now, and I don't really understand the difference.
As far as partners, it is companies that I have teamed up with or that I use their products, like Anova. I'm teamed up with Red Hen Quilt Shop in Marietta, and with Andy Barney. We help promote each other, and
got it.
Here in Atlanta, when I teach in the Atlanta area, I teach exclusively at Red Hen, and so it's a partnership. They promote me, I promote them.
I got it. And then so it seems like, let me see if I get it right. On the ambassadorship, you're promoting their product and they're sending you product usually as an ambassador. And as a partner, there isn't any it's not a monetary relationship. The partnership isn't giving you money or something like that, but you're both recognizing that the brand, it seems like, so the partners aren't necessarily sending you, so do it one more time for me. I get it, but I don't get it. So an ambassadorship.
So the partners are,
yeah. Okay,
so with the partners and everything, there's no monetary gain or anything.
Yeah.
It is like a Nova long arm.
Yeah.
I purchased my own my Nova long arm.
Got it.
And Valerie and Michelle from the Long Arm Network Southeast are really, really awesome and such a huge supporter and fans of mine. And it's a partnership where they love what I do, and so they're happy to promote me and share it with their clients and their friends.
Got it.
And I love their service and the long arm that I bought from them. So I'm happy to say I'm an Anova owner, and I bought my long arm at the Long Arm Network Southeast.
Got it. And
then that helps.
That totally helps. Okay, so tell me about Wonderfill. So that's one of your other ones. Does that mean that you only use Wonderfill, or do they what does a company I get it when it's a big company like it's a long arm. You're not going to have a 500 long arm sitting around. But sort of what kind of tell me a little bit more about how that one works.
With Wonderfill, I was using their one of their thread lines based upon a recommendation after talking to them at market. They asked me to try it, and it worked out really, really good, and I loved it. And so with them, I was able to. They have a teachers program where they have all the teachers listed that use their products.
Very cool.
And then when they have new products come out and all, they'll let me try them and everything.
That's really great.
And ask for feedback.
Yeah.
And so that's how that works with them.
That's really interesting. So interesting. Okay, so that's really cool. How important do you think? So we're this weird experiment in Tulane University, and so one of the things we're looking at is ambassadors this semester, affiliate linking, like all the kind of mechanics of what people are doing in the business on a social media kind of scale, and ambassadors and partnerships and all of that is really a big deal at the moment. How important do you think that is to creating what we talked about as sort of your industry tribe? Like what role does that play in sort of your world?
It's a big one because, I mean, there's with social media now, if you look at now versus like 20 years ago,
yeah,
you have a lot more people who are wanting to be designers and who are wanting to be to do good things in the industry. And so you have a lot of people now that are on social media posting, and they're able to put out designs. And so you have to look at what is setting me apart from everybody else out there? What do I do different? And how do I get more people interested? And that's where the ambassadorships and the partnerships come in and all. You recognize each other's qualities and what you bring to the table, and you work together to build more awareness of your brand and of each other's brands.
Yeah. Now tell me,
there's one thing that we just did last.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. What'd you do?
One thing that we just launched actually last night for my side of the business is we launched we're looking at Vector Quilts.
Right, Vector Quilts. That's what my next question was about, Vector Quilts. Yeah, tell me about what you did.
So what we did last night is we actually launched the first phase of our ambassador program. We laid out the rules and everything, and this is what we're looking for. Because people are loving our products, and they're like, how can we promote, and what can we do to let more people know about what I do, about my paper piecing designs. So we decided to launch an ambassador program. We've been working on it.
Cool.
And it launched last night. And so we're looking at where we're at as a brand to bring in brand ambassadors to help promote and do social media posting. Because social media is a big thing nowadays.
Totally. All right. So I think that's fascinating. I think that's really interesting. So tell me, how are you doing anything? Again, I'm such a legal girl. So how do you choose your ambassadors, or as much as you can tell me, and do you put any kind of contract in place, or is it informal? So what is a brand ambassador for Vector Quilts? And we need to go back and sort of talk, after you say that, let's talk about what Vector Quilts is. But how are you putting that together in terms of, because I'm really curious sort of how these programs develop.
So I did a lot of thinking and a lot of researching on ambassadors. I decided that I didn't want to just do a form you fill out with your name, email. Why do you like the company? What do you do? Because it doesn't really tell me how active somebody is on social media.
Yeah.
It also doesn't tell me how passionate they are about our products.
Right.
So what we did is... set up a web page and list the details about what the brand ambassador is. And what we're looking for is if somebody's interested in being a brand ambassador, make sure that when they're posting and they're sharing our products and everything, they tag us in their social media posts, and they use the hashtag Vector Quilts. We can use that hashtag to see how active they are, how passionate they are about our products. Because again, when you're doing an ambassador program, you don't want just everybody saying, "Oh, I just want to be an ambassador," just for the sake of being an ambassador. You want people who truly are passionate about your products and they love your products, and it's not just a title to them. They're doing it because they're actively involved in it and they love it.
Right.
And so for us, we did that with decided not to go with filling out a form and sending us an email, and then we got to go search and go through your postings and see how much you're doing.
Got it.
Of our product.
Got it.
When you're tagging us and you're using a hashtag, it's easy for us to see that. and we know at that point, hey, this person's really done a lot of our products. They're really passionate about it.
Yeah.
And let's talk to them.
That's really cool. And do you are you focused then on Instagram because you're using the hashtags, or are you also interested in Facebook as a medium?
Facebook and Instagram, because you can still use the hashtags on Facebook.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
And we're developing a contract that is coming up, and we're giving like the ambassadors a welcome pack, and they get discount codes to give their friends.
Interesting.
And one of the things we decided to add a monetary element to it, so that if they give their friends that discount code and their friend purchases, they get a percentage cash back every month as part of being an ambassador.
Really interesting. So how are you doing that? Is it credit towards patterns, or is it actually cash back to them?
It will actually be an actual cash back.
Wow. And then how do they so tell me again how so if it's because they're using the code, each ambassador then has its own code to give to their friends, I would imagine, so you can track what's being sold.
Yes, as long as their friends use that, their friends get a 10% discount when they come purchase. As long as they use that, their friend uses that discount code, it will be able to keep track of every single sale under that unique code.
I totally love it. Yeah.
For each month.
Very interesting. And then they'll get a percentage of the sale, or they get a lump sum of money if they have a certain amount of sales for the...
They get a percentage of each sale.
Wow. That's really great. How did you come up with that? And sort of, what's your thoughts? Because I think it really does reward the people out there. They're kind of like your salespeople out there in some way. So I really like that model.
Yes, it is. I looked at a lot of different ambassador programs. We went through and we searched and Googled ambassador programs and read through the different rules on so many different ambassador programs. And that was one part that I saw in a couple of ambassador programs that were stood out to me. And I was like, that's a really good idea, and I like that. That's something different that a lot of people aren't doing.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that would be something that people would be interested in.
That's really cool. I quite like that. And how many ambassadors do you start with? How many?
We're looking, depending upon how active and everything and all, we're looking at starting with 3 or 4.
That's great.
And then as we keep building, still watching everything. And if we see somebody that's out there that's really, really active and really, really loving our products, with being a smaller company, we can add somebody in, and it's not a big deal. We're not a large company where we have to go through multiple chains. It goes through me to decide that.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
This person is going to be a great fit.
It's so funny. My husband and I have this other company, but we have another company, and we were working with a really big company, very big company, like an international company on this project. So they would ask us we would have this meeting, and they would say, okay, let's change this. And Ron and I would come back, and we change it in like 10 minutes. And then the big, huge company would be like, they'd need 3 or 4 weeks to do the same change on their side. So it's nice to be a nimble, small company, because you can actually be like, okay, let's get another one. I made the decision right now. There's no other people we have to run it up. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question before we move on to Vector Quilts, which is, so we have ambassadorships, we have partnerships. Tell me about sponsorships, because that's another thing that's a really big thing around this world. Tell me what role does that fit into your life and the industry in general?
Sponsorship is more along the lines of a company or a brand that likes what you're doing, and they see the reach that you have.
Yeah.
And so you're working together as a team, and do you like their product, and are you going to feature their product in what you do or in your videos? One example would be Martelli Enterprises, Martelli tables.
Yeah.
Martelli has some really, really awesome products.
Yeah.
And we've been talking, and we got connected up. So Martelli is a sponsor of what I do.
Very cool.
I have a lot of their tools here in the studio, and we're actually working on some videos that are coming out later this year featuring some of the Martelli tools and everything.
Very cool.
But and that's how the sponsorships work and all.
Very interesting. And in that case, are they often providing the tools for you for those videos because you're using them in the video? It's kind of like their marketing budget. They're using their to provide you with the tools you need for promoting their materials?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that's different. Here, say it again. We lost you a little bit on the video, the audio. Go ahead.
Okay. So like Martelli, we talked back and forth for a little while, a good bit, and they love what I do, and so I have one of their Martelli tables actually in the studio now for filming.
Yeah.
And so like they had their open house back in December, so I went down to it to offer to be there and offer them support and to talk about what I love about Martelli because they've been really good to me. So it's again, one of the things that I think is the biggest way to say it is that in this industry, we all work together, and when we work together, we're able to accomplish more.
Yeah, totally. I totally see that. It's very much mimics quilting in some way, right? That they're individual companies, but there's a recognition that the common coming together helps a lot. It's really interesting to see that it does reflect the history of quilting. It's both an individual and collaborative thing. It's an interesting balance of the two, All right.
It really is.
Okay, so Vector Quilts. Tell us about that. We're like half an hour in. I'm like, we should probably be like, what is Vector Quilt? But we're not like that. We're a different way.
Okay, so Vector Quilt is, when I started designing, was going through different company names, and I wanted something that represented me. I'm a techie person. I love technical things. I love computers, digital, and so we were coming up with names. And Vector, looking up different definitions. So Vector Quilts is where that came about, because Vector is not only graphics and all, but it's also the direction and speed something's moving. And so we came up with the name Vector Quilts. And that is everything. All of my patterns are published under my company, Vector Quilts.
Uh-huh.
And it just felt like it was just like the right fit for the name.
Interesting.
And so predominantly 99% of all of my patterns are foundation paper piece patterns. We just brought in this past summer, we was having everything out for printing. This past summer, we brought our printing in-house to keep everything cost effective. And able to offer a really good product to quilters without being a $100 pattern.
Yeah. So what makes a good foundation piece? I would love for you to send me one at some point so I could experience it. But what makes a good pattern? What makes a good foundation pattern?
With foundation piecing and all, you can get you can work little pieces. You can work with all these different angles that you just can't piece when you're doing traditional piecing.
Yeah.
You can work with real small points. You get these perfect, precise points always. And your fabric, when you're sewing on the foundation, your fabric doesn't stretch out when you're working with bias and cross grains.
Yeah.
And so it keeps everything squared up while you're working with it. And it's easier to assemble it together. And it's just the easiest way that I tell everybody to remember it is like paint by number. You're piecing by number.
You're piecing by number. Yeah, it's actually the first thing I started my kid on.
All the foundations are labeled with numbers.
Yeah. Your foundations are labeled with numbers, so you really just can go through it. Is that what you're saying? I cut you off. There's a little bit of delay, so sorry about that. Okay, and then what about like what you printed on? Like how is that? Yeah, tell me about that.
So a lot of patterns are printed on newsprint, and I don't like newsprint. I mean, that was one of my biggest things always that I hated with paper piecing. So I specifically, when I started this, I specifically went out and looked at what other people were doing. And I actually ran across a lady at market 3 years ago and loved the material that she was printing on. And so she gave me some samples to bring home, and I tested it, and I loved the material that she's printing on. It's a stabilizer type material. And so she started doing printing my patterns for me up to the point where we reached the point where we needed to, at that point, bring it in-house.
Yeah.
Because of time and quantities. Like you gotta plan ahead when you're ordering it out and say, all right, I think I need 50 copies right now.
Yeah.
And then if it sells out, you've got to wait for it to be reprinted. Whereas bringing it in-house now, we can print more on demand. We can decide, all right, we just need 10 copies right now.
So
and we sell 8 of them. We can print more.
Very interesting. So if it's printed on stabilizer, do you have to remove it after you finish the foundation? Are you still removing the paper? Like with traditional foundation, you remove the paper when you're done.
Yes.
Do you still do that here?
The current material, yes, that we're using, we still remove it. We're actually just finished testing a new material that you can actually leave in.
Oh, that would be so cool.
And we're slowly going to start moving over to that. But the really cool part about it is that you have people who do show quilts. Mm-hmm. They still have to tear out the foundation because most of the time when you do show quilts, you're not going to wash it.
Oh,
and so we take this material, you can still tear it out, or you can leave it in and wash it if it's a gift.
So interesting. And how are people using, tell me more about the show quilt side of it, because they're using your patterns and they're doing them, and are they entering them to like local and national? Like, tell me about that part of that side of it.
Yeah, I have people who enter it locally. I have people who have done my patterns who've entered them in national shows. And basically, all they have to do is they always they have to get a release from the designer saying, yes, it's okay to enter that quilt in a show. Some shows don't require it, but the bigger shows do require that they have a release from the designer. And they have the designer's permission to enter that quilt in a show. And so I know that Malachite was the first pattern I did for market almost 2 years ago. And Amy Peterson in Colorado did a really unique hand-dyed take on it, and she entered it in several national shows, and it was really awesome the way she did it. She added her own spin onto everything, and still kept true to the design of Malachite.
That's really interesting. So you see your work as original work, and then others can make it, add a little bit to it, get permission from you to show it, and everybody's happy. Does that sound like a good way to think about the legal side of it? It's really interesting.
Yes.
Now how are you...
And then, like, what we...
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry. There's just a little delay, so I'm sorry So go ahead.
So what we do is, in the patterns and all, one of the things that we do is every single pattern has a coloring sheet that they can go make copies of, so that they don't have to use my colors. They can sit down and color it with colored pencils or crayons and come up with their own color ideas.
Love it. That's really cool. Yeah, I hope if it's possible, if you can send, I would love to sort of see what it looks like. Now, how do you make these? Like, how are you designing these very intricate foundation patterns?
I designed in a couple of software programs. I designed in Electric Quilt. I designed in Quilt Pro. And also I've started designing in Adobe Illustrator.
Interesting.
My newest release, Star Relations, was designed completely in Illustrator.
Interesting. And then how does that get translated to being a foundation pieced work? Like, are you doing that? I mean, that's a lot of work. What people don't really understand about pattern makers, particularly foundation piecing, is it takes time to make these things.
It does, and I do all of the computer work myself. So all of the designing, all of the lining up, all of the making sure all the points are lined up, making sure the seam allowances are there, setting up the print layouts. All of that I do myself.
Interesting. So interesting. Now, one of the big questions I have for you today is, okay, so as I said, we started my kid on foundation piecing when she was 5 because we could make little animals. That was perfect, right? Like you could make a pig or an owl and feel super successful. I thought that was a perfect way to start her and keep her attention because all you had to have is attention to make one owl and then she could go away. Now you teach classes that are like beginning and intermediate. So I think I'm a very beginning foundation piecer. What do you learn and sort of how does it get more complicated? Is it the circles or having multiple things come together? What do you learn as an intermediate foundation piecing person?
So as an intermediate, you're learning about putting together different angles and different shapes and when you're lining up multiple seams. Like a beginner now, like very intro basic, we teach a mug rug block.
Yeah.
So you're doing one block. You're not putting together multiple blocks.
Yeah.
A beginner class, you're putting together some small blocks that don't have a lot of seams that line up. When you get into intermediate, you're putting together a lot of different seams that have to line up. You might have 8, 9 different seams down the side of that block. You need to make sure every one of those line up. So that your pattern flows.
Interesting.
You're learning working with the different angles and a lot of points. When you get into the advanced side, you're working with a lot of tiny pieces. You're working with instead of add a quarters, you're using add an eighth. You might even have to do a 16th of an inch because you've got so much bulk. You're working with Y seams and curves and.
How interesting.
Different things like that when you're working more to the advanced, intermediate, and advanced.
So interesting. Now, what do you think? I mean, the other major person that does foundation piecing is Judy Niemeyer. And they've created, Judelle, I guess, her daughter, created this whole network of people to teach her patterns. What do you think about that? Like, do you feel like, is that like a benefit because there's people out there that are already making her patterns? Or sort of what's the foundation piecing landscape look like, I guess, with these very complicated patterns?
I think it's a really good, I get a lot of questions about teaching my patterns, and Judy Niemeyer has the Certified Teacher Program. The other designer that's really well known is Jacqueline de Jong from the Netherlands. She has a certification program. And the certification programs are great because it says, hey, I don't want you teaching my patterns in just however you want to teach it. Yeah. These are the ground rules I've laid out for you, and I want you to teach the same techniques I teach.
Yeah.
If you're going to teach my patterns, I designed my patterns based upon this technique and this style. Yeah. And so by having a certified teacher program, they're saying, all right, you're certified, you're agreeing to teach it this way. And I've had a lot of questions about doing that with mine. And it is something we're in the process of working on. It is something that's not able to be done overnight. It takes a lot of time. And so when I have a few down moments, I'm making notes and I'm making drawings and doing different things that I need to remember to set this up because we're having a lot of questions about it. And so I feel like that it is something really good because I can't go across. A lot of guilds cannot have you come in. If there's a guild in Wyoming, they don't have the budget to bring me in to Wyoming to teach. But if they have somebody local or very localish that does my technique and knows how to teach like me, they're able to do that, and they're able to have that person come in And that also gives more people learning about my patterns and about my designs and about my teaching.
Very cool. So do you think that if you create this kind of program, it'll be an online, or will they come to you? Like, how would they get, like, do you have visions of what the certification process would look like?
I actually, because I'm a techie and I believe in using technology, I don't want people to have to put out thousands of dollars to be certified. I want to do a lot of more online classes and certification for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that will be more beneficial to everyone.
Hugely.
And it also means that they're able to do it we work better in the comfort of our homes when we're learning stuff like that. A lot of us do.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And they're able to do it from their home. And if they want to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, they can work on it at 2 o'clock in the morning versus having to be up at 10 a.m. X number of days.
I totally agree. And particularly, I mean, we all have, like, I think that's great. I think that's really great. Well, I would love, as you get that started, if you'll come back and talk to us about it, because I think that would be really interesting to understand sort of how that's going and the process and all of that. Now, I have one more thing to ask you about, which is your Vector box subscription. Tell me about, there's a lot, so we really have covered a lot of the different tools. A subscription box, like a Quilty box, or subscriptions to fabric, or like that's another component that's really a big thing at the moment. Tell me a little bit about that and what role that plays in your business.
So with the monthly Vector box, that was suggested to me by several friends. They're like, it'd be really cool if we could just have a small project that can be completed in a month. And we don't know what it is. We get it each month, and we open it up, and it's like a present each month. And it really is when you get the subscription boxes. It's like, I've got a present this month, and you open it up, and you're all excited to see what's in there. And so what we've done is we started coming up. We launched that. Our first one went out in August. And so each month it's a different project that can be completed in that month. And some months may have fabric. A lot of months don't have fabric. A lot of months it's a foundation project.
Yeah.
It's the foundation papers and the instructions and everything. It might be a tool in there, but it's centered around foundation piecing. And so we come up for each month. We come up with a project that is exclusive to the box. You can't buy it unless you're a subscriber, or you buy one of that month's box that we have a few extra of.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we're going to release anytime in the near future that we plan to release. If it's something, it might be something a year or two down the road. We're like, hey, that was a really cool one. Let's just release that as a pattern. But most of the time, you're not going to be able to get that unless you're a subscriber to the box.
Interesting. Very cool.
But it gives you a project each month to learn from and to make, and it doesn't overwhelm you where you're taking 8, 9, 10 months waiting to finish a project. It's something you can do in a month. Right.
So kind of that kind of, yes, I finished something kind of feeling. That's a really good feeling.
Yes.
And so how is that program going? How do you know, like, you've got costs to it because you have to make these patterns and get them out, and they're only for this group. So where do you see, like, what is success for that project? Or does it matter if it's successful to you, or sort of, is it for your, like, super fans? Sort of, what role does that play in your business?
It is. What a lot of people don't realize is that the subscription boxes, they don't per se make very much money, but they are a good way for people to learn more about your products. They may buy a gift for a friend, and that friend says, "Oh, I need to check out this website."
Yeah.
And they may be able to take in. They get somebody that's new to foundation pieces, and they don't want to try a big project. They're more apt to try it with a subscription box.
Yeah.
And it's an advertising. It is an advertising tool because it gets people used to your technique and your style, and then they come back and they're interested in your other patterns. There's not a huge profit in the subscription boxes because of the price point and everything. You have to determine what price that they will sell at, and also how much it's going to cost you. And each month you have to make sure that you're not spending more on that box than what it costs.
Totally. That's terrible, right?
Shipping.
Yes.
You have to think about shipping also.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things.
Yeah, shipping is hard, right? It's shipping shipping.
Yeah.
Shipping's hard.
I always hate when I get my shipping bill every 2 weeks, and I'm like, ugh. Shipping plays a large part of the business, and it's one of the largest expenses in any business.
Yeah, and it's a cost you can't really How much percentage of these, how much is shipping eating up your budget?
Well, the one thing that we have that helps is that we have price points. Under $26, we charge $4.
Yeah.
$26 to $74.99, we charge $8. Anything over $75, we have free shipping. So it balances out. I mean, it's right there, right at the. We usually have a pretty good estimate on it as far as the price point and everything.
Yeah.
We do eat more when somebody spends over $75. We eat that shipping cost, but it balances out.
Yeah.
It is a unique beast.
It's so interesting.
Sometimes, a lot of times you have the shipping could be $10, $11, $12. You're only charging $8.
Yeah.
So it does take in. Sometimes you lose, and sometimes it's right on.
So interesting.
We just felt like that was a fair price point.
Yeah.
To do the shipping.
Totally. Now, because it's paper piecing and it's paper, is it costing some? I keep going back. Maybe it's doesn't weigh that much, so it's okay, or maybe it weighs a lot, so it is worse than fabric.
We've got some patterns that weigh a pound. We got with all the foundations, and then if you've got somebody's ordered 3 patterns, you're looking at you could be up to 2 pounds with the box and everything. So it does add up because it's not just a little you get just a traditional pattern, which is just I'll print it on sheets of paper and you can drop it in and you can mail it out.
Yeah.
We ship a lot of our patterns in boxes.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So interesting. Okay, and then do you have a block of the month going this year? I saw reference to it.
We had one last year.
You did?
We had Marquee last year. We do not have the block of the month started yet this year. Looking at the timeline, and there's a lot of blocks a month start January, and some start mid-year. I think we're going to start ours closer to the mid-year.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't had time to finish everything, and I don't want to start stressing myself out at this point because logically I know that I can get it done, but I will be stressed by the time it's done.
Well, it's so funny, too, because
for us,
there's so much competition right now for block of the months, too. I mean, the amount of new stuff starting in January is kind of overwhelming, I think.
Yes, there is a lot that's starting in January. And for us, I feel like it's better if we just postpone that and start it closer to the mid-year.
Yeah, we did a sew-along using we just randomly picked a pattern and did it. We're going to be more specific about it this year, but we're deciding that our new year begins after Mardi Gras. So since we're New Orleans, when nobody else is you start your projects in March. So that's kind of our idea. It's we can't really think about anything till after Mardi Gras. So
yeah, we just finished our sew along last night. Was the last video online sew along in my Facebook group, and the pattern we actually did 2 patterns. They picked Atlantis and they picked Mardi Gras. So I said I'll do a both.
Oh, that's
we
so
actually have a pattern
great!
called Mardi Gras.
Oh, I love it. Well, we should take a look because we're still trying to. I think what we're going to do for our group is choose a couple of them, like you're saying. Put it kind of to a vote to see what people want to do, so that more people are involved in doing what they want to do.
Right. Yeah, that's what we did in my group. I always ask them, hey, which ones are you interested in? And Mardi Gras and Atlantis came in right there together, so I decided to do them both because they can be taught very similar.
Interesting. And then those videos, so now I'm just asking, now we've got to kind of shift, and I know we're almost out of time, but it seems like you already have those videos, right? So if we did a sew-along, if we put up a pattern of a choice of one of yours, do you already have those videos? Could we, as part of the we wouldn't have to redo videos potentially, right? Other sew-alongs could use your videos.
Yeah, the videos are in my the videos are in my Facebook group. We have a Facebook group, Quilting with David Gilleland.
Yeah.
And so all the videos are saved there, and any of the videos can be viewed from there.
That's very cool. Well, we should think about that. We are starting to think about like what does the group want to do? Right now we're doing all business related kind of things through the spring, but then we're going to sort of think about and we want to work with a designer. We want to work with somebody this time. Like first time, we just picked a pattern, did it, sort of to experience it. But I think we need to do it in a more systematic, strategic way. But that might be really interesting. We should think about doing maybe something like a foundation piecing, a paper piecing, and maybe an applique or something like that. Something that like different people could be interested in different components of it. I don't know. I was very skeptical of the sew along. And it turns out it's a really good experience for people. So I think we're going to do it again. People like it. So
it really is. It really is. And the sew along, like with mine, we did the live videos in the group, and so people can say, "Hey, I need to see this," or "I'm not understanding this. Can you show me this?" And I'm able to adjust on the fly when they say, "Hey, I can't see this," or "I don't understand this," or "Can you explain that?"
Yeah.
So it worked out really, really good.
That's really interesting. Well, we should think about it. Let's talk more about that. And Gigi Bai is in charge of our sew-alongs. And so we've been starting to talk about what it is that she's a volunteer. We're all volunteers. But we've been starting thinking about sort of what we should be doing with that. And I do think that there's an interesting... What I like about foundation piecing and about your business model is that unlike traditional patterns, it's consumable. It is harder to copy your patterns, and you need the stuff to make it. And so I think that's quite a smart business model, as opposed to just putting out a pattern, and then in our world, it's much more easy to copy and to have revenue loss. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I do. There's been a couple people that have copied, and it was just. I have actually been, I was at one show, and my friend looked at me and said, "You didn't say anything." I was like, I didn't have a response because I was just so flabbergasted because somebody walked up to me and was like, "Yeah, I took your pattern, and I took it to Kinko's, and I made copies of this, and I made this, and I made that." And I was like, my mouth just dropped open, and I was just so floored.
Like, they're always so happy about it, right? They're proud of it. Isn't that weird? It's weird, right?
Yeah, they were proud of it, and it was just like, I didn't know. I mean, at that point, I wasn't expecting it, and my mouth just dropped open, and I couldn't say anything. I didn't even. It just threw me into this whole blank space. Everything left my mind, and I had no response.
Totally.
Except this mouth dropped open, wild look on my face, and I'm sure my face probably portrayed the. You really just told me this?
Right. You've told me how naughty you were? It's interesting, isn't it? And the funny thing about that, especially with what you do, I suspect, is first, you don't know how accurate, because I have had this experience with some of the, we did the Jen Kingswell Gypsy Wife, and there were some paper piecing versions of it online, and so when we did it didn't photocopy right. The just because you go to Kinko's and photocopy it, it may not all match up. So that's the first part. Right. And then how much are they spending at Kinko's when they could just get the real thing? Like the cost differential to be naughty is stupid. And all that time and effort to sort of get it all. I mean, and they're putting it on paper. They're putting it on paper at Kinko's. Like, that's not good either. So I think that's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of deterrence, I guess, in your...
And the thing is, and what's really funny, it was just a $15 pattern.
Right, really? It's just a $15 pattern. She so spent more than $15. I've been to Kinko's. I know what happens.
And yeah, it's not cheap to photocopy.
No, it's not.
And it's not accurate.
It's not.
Really, I mean, copying does distort.
It really does. I am witness to this because I was with a group and we all had to. We got together to do the foundation piecing and we all were supposed to photocopy it, and mine turned out too small. And then when we were like, oh, the photocopy machine, it just didn't work. Like, I was so frustrated because I'd done so many of these blocks, but I hadn't even thought to say, double check to make sure that it actually was. I was so I think I just put a border around it and just gave up for the day. I was so irritated by the whole thing. So, all right, cool. Well, I think this is fabulous. Let's keep playing. I really now. What kind of the last question, I guess, is what kind of copyright notice do you put on your patterns? Do you care about that? Do you register them? Like, what kind of protection do you have for? What kind of legal protection do you care about that side of the business? Is it important to you?
It is. We do have the copyright notice on the back that on all the patterns that I would have to pull it out because I don't know it by heart.
Yeah, what does it say?
But we do have a copyright notice on the back. We have a.
That's usually why I ask people to send me stuff because I want to see their copyright notice.
And somewhere you would think I'm in my studio, so we don't have a lot of patterns out here. And I just had it, and I misplaced it.
That's totally, I get it.
But it just says that all rights are reserved. That they're not allowed to copy or sell my patterns. I can actually send you a specific one of it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And, I'd love it. Because we're doing a huge academic side of that to really understand what you guys are all doing. You know.
Yes.
And then
I'm more than happy to send you a copy
I would love
of
it.
That.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then our goal is to put out the optimal kind of why you would. We may even do it as like a little like a Java pull down, so like make your own copyrighted right statement kind of thing, so you can understand like what matters to you. Because we have to tell you, it's a really quick story. I know we're over time, so I interviewed this woman who's online. I'm not going to say who it is, and she's on Facebook. And she puts out all these free patterns to people, and she's on Social Security. She doesn't make anything from her pattern. She doesn't want to. She doesn't believe in selling things. And then on her pattern, she writes all rights reserved. So it's like she's got the harshest copyright notice that you can have, but she wants them all out for free. And it was like, well, why do you put you could put something more friendly? Because you don't want to make money on them. You aren't reserving all your rights, So that's kind of one of our big goals is to help educate people on that side of it. Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. And this has been really great. I would love to chat more with you. And as you go and have other projects and products, will you come back and talk with us? And we really, we should talk with Gigi about the idea of potentially putting up a foundation piecing project. I think it would be, people really like it. They like them because you're successful. I mean, if you know how to do them and you get the techniques, that's hard, but you really can be successful with them, which I really like about it,
Yeah, I agree. You really can. And I'd be more than happy to come back, and I'd be honored if y'all decided to do one of the foundation pieces.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.